Good afternoon, evening, or even morning to everyone. Hope you're doing fantastically well, and welcome back to the next video on the channel. I realise it's been a bit over a week because we've been having a bit of a double game week for some teams, and it's been, well, as we'd expect in a double game week, quite high scoring. I've seen quite a lot of good results and good point scoring so far. Not done too bad ourselves, but I hope everyone's game week 35 has gone very well. So for game week 36, because of the double game week we've just had, we're kind of seeing the other side of that where we've only got 8 fixtures in this game week. So we're going to dive a bit into them in this video. But before we dive into the content today, just thanks for the support again, as I always like to say. And thank you guys. Thank you for the new subscribers and everyone. Like I said on the previous video, likes and subscriptions are completely free and just keeps you notified when we release new videos. So that's just great and it helps me out a lot. And as I mention all the time, the other social media channels are on your screen now. Check us out on Twitter or Twitch, especially if you like FIFA content as well. Since it's team of the season on FIFA, come and join in at some of the live streams. We're having a good laugh over there. But we'll dive into the video for this week. So as you can see, fixtures up in front of us. 8 fixtures this game week, starting from Friday the 14th. So we're recording this on the 13th, which means we still don't know the result of the Man United Liverpool game. So if anything, if there's any particular injuries or anything to Liverpool players, you'll have to bear with me on that one. But this is advice as of that point. So as the six game week matches, that means 4 teams are blanking in the game week. So we have Man United, Chelsea, Leicester, and Arsenal, who all don't play in this game week. So I think a big issue we need to deal with for this game week is to make sure we fill the full 11 where possible as well. Because we quite like to have had, especially Man United players for last week, because they had a triple game week, have a good stock of them in our teams. So we can get away with 4 if we've got a goalkeeper benching, but we need to make sure we can actually field in the 11. So hopefully we're prepared for this beforehand. But if necessary, for example, in my situation, I'll probably have to take a -4 to get a full team out just because how I wanted to chase the triple game week last week. But that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're rank chasing. But try not to be taking -8, -12. So you need to weigh up if it's worth it to take that hit. Sometimes if you're just bringing someone in who's going to play, then you're not even going to get your 4 points back. So it's weighted risk you've got to take. So let's start going through the fixtures here. So normally when I look at this first fixture between Newcastle and Man City, I think if City didn't have the league wrapped up, it'd be all on Man City assets. But I still have no clue who will actually play in these games. I've seen a lot of discussion around Foden and Mahrez could be a good punt for this week. I wouldn't disagree with that. I do quite like Mahrez. When he plays, he seems to do quite well. And he's always got that threat cutting in from the outside. And we all know what he's going to do, but he still does it. It's kind of like Robin in his prime. He could always do it, but um, just with City assets, I'm just not totally convinced. And if you're bringing them in for the rest of the season, there's going to be quite likely a rotation, especially for the last day of the season, because they've got the Champions League finals to look forward to. So I'm kind of staying clear of this completely. I think in my mind, there's better options to go for than the City assets. Newcastle, I don't think I'd ever look past the Wilson or San Maximan because I only mention them in the fact that their last 2 games of the season are pretty. You couldn't get much easier fixtures the last 2. Obviously, this City game is not that great, but the 2 fixtures for the rest of the season are quite good. So just bearing that in mind, probably for next week rather than this week. But I could still grab a goal against City depending on what lineup they play. But like I said, I wouldn't be going all out on this fixture. So we moved on to Burnley against Leeds, which I think could actually be a decent game depending on how Burnley's if they just sit back or if they go out for it like they kind of have in the previous away game like against Everton, which made it quite an interesting game. And to see Burnley play that way just was a lot more attractive to see compared to how we've seen Burnley. We have this image of Burnley in our head that like long ball football, but they can play nice football when they want to. So I think like a Wood and I quite like McNeil. Like Chris Wood's in the form of his life at the minute. So if you've got him in your team, keep him in there. He's done fantastic the last few game weeks. Leeds always seem to be quite open, so it's not a bad fixture to have them in there. But I would mention Leeds here. So Leeds have had a really bad run of fixtures, probably about 4 or 5 game weeks where they've played some like basically all the top teams. But this fixture and the next two fixtures are a lot more friendly. And when I'm thinking about these last 3 game weeks, there's 3 teams that stand out to me, and Leeds is one of them in terms of their fixtures. The others being West Ham and Liverpool. Those 3 teams, I'd say, are the easiest fixtures if you're looking at the last 3 weeks combined. You could argue like Leeds and West Ham's fixtures are quite difficult this week, but I would then use the flip side that the next 2 weeks are probably some of the easiest fixtures you can get. So this could be a good time to be jumping back on your Leeds. I have slight doubts about Bamford because he's not performing as he should be, and quite a lot of the time he's getting subbed off around the hour mark if he's not being effective. He's definitely not being as good as he was earlier in the season. So I think at the minute the standout for Leeds is basically Dallas because of how he's performing. So if you're just not getting your Leeds and you need a defender, Dallas is a good one for that. Rafinha, you're a bit unsure about his fitness, so you could go for another cheaper midfield option like a Harrison. Maybe leave it for this fixture with like a Rafinha and see how he performs in this, and then see how many minutes he gets, and then maybe bring him in for the last 2 and go for that. Yeah, it should be a good game now. Well, hoping at least. And there's probably some value in both sides of their assets, but if I was recommending for now and in the future, I'd be jumping on the Leeds where possible. So then we've got Southampton against Fulham, and then I feel like Fulham, now they're relegated, they haven't got a lot to fight for, and I think this could be a decent game for Southampton, especially now Danny Ings is back in form based on the last fixture. So there could be a few goals in this for Southampton. Like Danny Ings, it's probably a better option to go than Ings, but for like a 1 week punt on this game week, it's not a bad shout. Even like a Che Adams, I think got a goal and assist in the last fixture, gives a bit of value there, and the fancy Southampton to keep a clean sheet. So if I look at this in isolation, Southampton, good bet for this week. Like I think earlier in the season, a lot of people had Southampton defenders like Vestergaard and Walker Peters, so it's not a bad time to make use out of those again. But like I said, Fulham, I won't be backing them at all. So Danny Ings, he's a very streaky player. Now he's scored 2 goals. You might want to get him into this Fulham fixture. It's a really good fixture for them. And then hopefully he keeps up that streak for the last 2 fixtures. And why not go for the kind of punt for the last 3 weeks? It's kind of the moves you need to be making if you're trying to get your rank or even just get that little edge in your mini league. So I moved to Brighton West Ham, which again I think will be a decent game because Brighton like to play open attacking football, and if West Ham still have any chance of getting the Champions League, they need to win every single game. So I'm hoping they go for it a bit as well. I think their last away fixture as well, they played quite well and open. So hoping it'll be a decent game. So as I mentioned for Leeds as well, West Ham I'd say are the best, or in the top 3 for the best fixtures in the last 3 games. You could argue again Brighton is quite difficult, but then the other 2 make up for it, similar to with Leeds. So again, if you're looking for a team to jump back onto with cheap assets, West Ham again is one of them. So you've got your standout. Now Antonio is back. If you're looking for a cheapest striker, if you want to get rid of Iheanacho because he's not playing this week, straight to Antonio or even to a Bamford, as I mentioned before, could be a good move. Obviously because they're playing and then the fixtures are really good. You've got Lingard who's gone a bit off the boil, but now I've said that of course he'll perform, but he's a decent asset still to be going for, and I do like the defence, in my opinion. I think they've been a bit more open recently, but like a Kufal always seems to be getting in with assists, so I think Kufal for his price is good value at this stage as well, and you'll just be keeping him for the rest of the season. If you've got an injury in defence or you've got a Man United defender, for example, I've got Maguire, who fits both of those. So he could fit quite well into that solution if you need another defender especially to get through this week. He's a good cheap option. But yeah, going forward, West Ham are a very good side to be on. Brighton, I can imagine some people still got a defender in there. If you're trying to get through this game week, I won't be transferring Brighton players out because this is a decent enough fixture to keep them in. So I wouldn't be prioritising bringing these in or out of your team. Because Brighton I wouldn't fancy for the next few games, but this fixture's okay if you need to play players in it. Like I said, in some instances we're just going to have to play a player to get through this week if you're struggling with the quantity of players you've got. So Brighton's not a bad one to go for here. So we see Crystal Palace against Villa. neither of these teams inspire me when they're coming forward or in defence. Really, I can see this easily being a 1-1 and teams kind of cancelling each other out. If you've got like an Eze or someone from last week, that is not a bad shout for even a captaincy choice really here, or even a Zaha. But I don't see it being a huge scoring game, like I said, a 1-1. So I wouldn't be again investing in these kind of assets in this fixture. I think if we see the next few fixtures that we're going to discuss, I think the next three solely for this game week are a lot better to be targeting rather than that fixture. Excuse me. So we just move on to Spurs against Wolves, which on paper I think Spurs should be doing quite well. I know Wolves are a very strange team. I think if you said this game last season, you'd be saying, "Oh, it's a tough game. Don't be backing your Spurs assets." But Wolves this season aren't convincing me at all. I know they came back in the last fixture, but that we're playing against 10 men. So I'll be backing Spurs here. Kane is probably it's going to be Kane and Salah will be the top two captaincy picks this game. I'd expect. I think Salah will probably edge it based on playing West Brom and then basically well they haven't got anything to play for at all now and it's lower down in the table, easier fixture on paper. But yeah, the similar Spurs assets you've got here, I think we all know them by now with a Kane, Son, and I always say a regular on defence, but he's not really returned much in the last few weeks. And if I was bringing in an asset here for Spurs, I wouldn't be focusing on defence. But I hope most people would already have Kane, but Son and Bale bringing them back in is not a bad shout either. Because then I think they've got a decent fixture next week as well, Spurs, and then the last fixture is a bit more difficult. So even if you just hold them through the whole season, it's not bad to get them back in. For example, like if you're trying to get rid of an expensive asset, the only issue with the Spurs assets is they're quite expensive, so you've got to have that kind of money in the bank or taking an expensive asset out to do that. For example, you could be taking out a Vardy and being able to upgrade back to Kane. You might still be doing that quick swap between them. Okay, so like I said, I think Kane will be a big captaincy choice this week. But if we move on to the Liverpool fixture, I'd argue that Salah's probably the biggest, well, the most likely to score your big points in this week. I'm not overly convinced by Liverpool, but they always create the chances. I feel like Salah always gets the chances no matter who he's playing against. So he's not probably been as clinical as in the past, and he's got the room to improvement in converting those chances. But the thing is, he's still getting in the right positions, and we know he can get those goals, and obviously he's on penalties as well. If you're not tripled up on Liverpool already, I think you probably need to be at this point. Their next two Liverpool, in my opinion, have got the best three fixtures for the rest of the season. So if you haven't got them in your team, I think tripling up, you need to be doing at this stage. So best assets, obviously Salah's a standout. If you want a cheaper option in midfield, you've got Jota. And then we're probably going back to the old favourites in defence with Trent and Robbo. If you really want a cheap defender, you've got like Phillips in there, but he's not got the attacking potential as you've got from the other two. But if you're on a budget, then you might actually be going for that kind of option. I wouldn't see a lot of value in many of the other options unless you want to go for like a Mane as a bit of a differential and just hope he outscores Salah. But the fact that Salah's on penalties, I think, always gives him that edge, and he's got that kind of ruthless streak where you always expect him to score. Saying that, as we were before, we're not converting his chances, but you still expect him to even grab a fluke if he could. But like I said, Salah has got to be the standout option. If you're sticking to the big guns, Salah and Kane are always there for you. And then differential, as you mentioned, you could be going for like a West Ham. And also in this next fixture, the last one I'm going to mention, Everton against Sheffield United. I'll be backing your Everton assets in here. DCL will be a great captaincy shout, I'd say. I'm thinking like Sigurdsson could be a decent shout. He's not thoroughly convincing me all the time, but especially against the Sheffield United, he could be getting good returns. Even a Digne in defence. For this game week, Everton's fixture is really strong, so if you've got Everton assets in, probably from the double game week, it's a great week to have them in ready for this as well. Should hopefully get some decent returns. You'd expect them to keep a clean sheet. I know they can be a bit shaky in defence, but especially against Sheffield United, you'd hope they could do what needs to be done in defence. But there'll be an interesting bit of a differential captaincy pick in there, I think. If you're going totally differential, Man City, if you get Pep Roulette right, fair play. Just make sure you've got a secure vice, and you might get burnt by a 1 pointer like a Foden coming off the bench. But if you want to take that risk, that's totally up to you. Even a Danny Ings would be a shout if you've got that kind of asset you want to get in your team. Like a Vardy to a Danny Ings for this week would make complete sense. So that would be an interesting option if you've got the funds to do it. But yeah, I hope that gives you a good rundown of the teams, guys. Like I said, on captaincy shouts, Salah, Kane, and then if you want to go differential, there's quite a few options in there. But hopefully this has been useful, and we will be back next week, so next game week actually starts on the Tuesday after this game week, so we're going to have a short turnaround again. I'm wary this video is coming out about 24 hours before the deadline as well, because it's quite a consolidated game weeks, because they're stretched over a few weeks, or they're trying to get in midweek games before the end of the season. But we will have one out probably on Monday. We'll aim for to try and get another video out, so we've got it ready for game week 37, and then we're really just basically bang at the end of the season, and we'll be having the summer break. I'm sure all the footballers need it, to be fair. Well, I'll say that'll be at the Euros, but and we'll call it for this video, and hope it's been useful. If you need any help, as I always say, drop us a comment, contact us on Twitter, anything. Like I said, join in Twitch streams. Here to help in any form that you need it, and we will see you next week on the next one. Have a good evening, everyone.